You remind me of the babe.
What babe?
The babe with the power.
What power?
The power of voodoo.
Who do?
You do.
Do what?
Remind me of the babe.
Yeah, I'm not doing this.
Oh, come on, Dante. We had the whole thing set up. Oh, that would have been great. All right, well, hey guys, it's another episode of the M Cluster Sunday night, and as usual, Dante is going to be in the background this time. But with me are the usual suspects. We've got Brandon.
Hey guys.
And we've got Tyrone.
How's it going?
And this week we're talking about the 1986 fantasy classic Labyrinth. And since this is Brandon's pick, he gets to do the lead-in. So take it away, Brandon.
Hi guys. Well, for those of you watching, I hope you've seen the movie. If not, definitely go watch it. It was such an amazing film when I was younger, and still now. I still love watching it. Does not get old at all. The movie stars Jennifer Connelly and David Bowie. And actually, it's surprising. I honestly didn't even know there was Jennifer Connelly up until a few months ago when I had watched it again. But that's neither here nor there. They both did a great job, in my opinion. Overall, the film is a very feel-good movie. Toward the end, it's one of those fantasy movies that they don't really do anymore, which I wish they would. But again, that's something that older movies hold true. That there's other movies that are like this, Dark Crystal, and a few others, but. It's definitely one of my favorite childhood movies overall. How do you guys feel about it? Like I said, I thought it was fantastic.
Well, what was your take on it, Tyrone?
Well, it's always been a favorite of mine. I really like, the acting and the singing in it. I watched it very young, so the magical theme, it's always, held true. I liked it, of course.
Well, one of the interesting things I always thought about this movie was the use of the Muppets. This movie kind of came in a interesting time in movie making history because CGI wasn't really all that popular or prevalent yet. I think the first CGI shot that was done completely CGI in film was from the Last Starfighter was the final battle scene, and so that was like a really big deal. And even at the beginning of this movie, they had the first photorealistic representation of a digital animal with the owl flying around. But they had nothing even close to what we have today in terms of being able to animate full characters. So using Muppets was really kind of state-of-the-art back then. Even if you look at Star Wars, Yoda was a Muppet. It was Jim Henson.
Well, even something more recently that involved Muppets is Farscape.
Farscape had Muppets?
Yeah, it's Jim Henson's. Like yeah. Look it up.
I didn't watch the show, so
it was good. They involved. It wasn't a lot of it because they obviously have the technology now to do the CGI, but there were certain things that did involve things like that. One of the creatures that flew the ship, was a giant like Muppet type of thing, and so Jim Henson's productions always do great in terms of the way they animate their characters. So,
well, I found interesting about that is it had the Muppet scenario been a little more plausible, a little easier to do. It may have eclipsed some of the technology we have today or pushed it back further. Because if you look at this movie, they did a really, really wonderful job with these characters. Yeah. I think the only time in the film, and this is me watching it now, that I thought, like, oh, that's kind of hokey, were the Firebirds, were the characters where their heads were interchangeable. Like when you looked at that was like clearly, like marionette type puppetry. And that kind of turned me off a little bit, but the overall, it was just a great scene. Tyrone and I were watching it earlier, and we were looking at the first scene where the goblins are in the room when she's looking for the baby, and they're running around behind her and just kind of peeking out and hiding every time she turns around. And it's completely seamless. So it's a really wonderful job. And typically, when I watch a movie like this, and years later after having not seen it for a while, I typically go, "Oh man, I still like this, but that's bad, compared to today." And while I did
not
feel
do that with this movie.
I felt that way a little bit with the acting, but the overall theme and the puppetry and the special effects, which I consider to be truly special because they're not all computer animated, were still completely viable in today's movie market. I really enjoyed it. It's just something that I've always liked. And then a lot of the attraction of this movie is David Bowie. I'm not one of those people.
Yeah, I want to say one of the attraction for me of the movie is not so much David Bowie, just the whole fantasy type theme where it's almost like a younger type of fantasy, with meeting the goblin and then meeting the big Ludo. Hoggle and Ludo were two great characters. Hoggle being the coward, and Ludo, while not being a coward, but being very scared of stuff.
Yeah, I actually put up a Facebook poll on our page to see whose favorite Muppet characters were, and while we didn't get a whole lot of votes, Ludo was the winner, and that is actually my favorite character too. It's just the way he delivers his lines. It's like Ludo sad,
Ludo scared.
Yeah, I mean, and he's just this giant hulking beast, but they made him such a sensitive, almost cowering type of soul. He certainly wasn't, whatever word it is I can't think of right now. In contrast, that's what it is, to Sir Didymus, the little tiny knight type character, who was afraid of nothing. That was kind of the wonderful thing that they played off of each other.
Well, one of the constant themes was like everything is not what it seems.
Yeah.
And that's just another representation of that.
Now, looking at it from an actual, really thinking about if you were in that situation, if I was in the situation where I had to go rescue my younger brother or something, I would have climbed the damn walls.
That was the same comment Tyrone made.
They're not that tall, and there's enough difference, in the bricks that you could just step up, climb. You could have just she should have gone straight there.
Well, my take on that was the fact that she's a girl; she didn't want to get dirty.
But another take on that is the Labyrinth always changes. I mean, if you climb the wall, and okay, this is a path, whatever, he's just going to put something in front of you and make you fall off the wall.
Maybe he wouldn't have expected it.
Well, you saw, when she first discovers the entrance, not to the labyrinth itself, but outside of that first layer when she talks to the worm, there was a path directly to the Goblin City.
Yeah.
And how different of a movie would that have been? So there's definitely things about the labyrinth that can work in your favor or work against you. They clearly make it seem that the Goblin King and the goblins themselves kind of control what goes on in the labyrinth, which makes you wonder why he would put a path in there that was straight to the city.
I don't know about the goblins themselves, because even the two doors and the door knockers, they didn't really know anything.
Yeah, but remember when she was using the lipstick to mark what direction she'd come in, the goblins were changing them and moving them around.
Yeah, but probably at the direction of the Goblin King.
Well, obviously, because he's the Goblin King.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm sure it wasn't just oh, she wrote in lipstick, let me just change it. No, anyway, I really wish they would make more movies like this nowadays.
I do too, and you mentioned the Dark Crystal. Dark Crystal is another one of my favorite films, and that one was purely Muppets, whereas here they did the human and Muppet interaction thing, and you could actually see some of the classic Jim Henson type of shots and scenes that they did with it. If you ever watched the Muppet Show, they did a lot of this kind of stuff, particularly in the singing parts. The positioning was very familiar, so it did kind of have his signature on it. But as opposed,
they even do well with portraying emotions within the Muppets, and in both movies, obviously, and that's not something you really see in other movies that try to use things that are similar to Jim Henson's Muppets.
Well, the thing with those Muppets is they're incredibly complex. I mean, I think it took something like 7 people to run the Ludo costume. There was a person inside, and it was so big that they actually had to have a TV monitor in there, and there were cameras in the eyes, so that they could actually move around and interact in that world. And then they had a whole team of people that just ran Ludo's face expressions, and the ears and stuff like that. So I mean, these Muppets are not, simple. They're not puppets. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, they're very intricate, but they work extremely well.
Right, and you just don't see that kind of effort put into those kinds of characters now because it's expensive. They have other ways of doing it
than creating an entirely CGI character. Because I mean, that's one thing that holds some studios back is, we don't have the money to purchase the people to do the CGI for such and such. I mean, what's the cost difference?
Well, I don't know what Muppeteers get paid,
right?
so I don't really know, but you're talking about one graphical artist who gets paid well to.
It's not just one, but anyway.
Well, you're talking about like graphical artists get assigned characters. Some of them have multiple people working on them, but there's usually like one person that kind of owns the overall arc of a character, whereas with these Muppets, you're talking about 7 salaries, on that film for one character.
Yeah.
And how many? I mean, hundreds of Muppets were in this film. Now, obviously, one person can run multiple Muppets, but it's like I don't really know how to make it.
Another example of something that was done recently that had, I mean, it did have some CGI, but there was some Muppeteering in the movie, and that was crap. The kid that was in a pajamas and had the crown.
Oh, I know the name of the movie. The guy from The Sopranos was the voice for one of the characters.
Yes.
Ty?
Where the Wild Things Are.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Where the Wild Things Are.
Thank you, Where the Wild Things Are. I mean, that had some Muppeteering in it.
Right.
And for those scenes, it worked very well, I thought. But, again, I mean, trying to shift back to this, like, I wish they would put the kind of effort that they did in this kind of, even if you want to call it a child fantasy, I wish they would put that kind of effort into new movies.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that.
But
Sure.
what
Jennifer Connelly's character caught me off guard because I didn't know it was her until it didn't look like her like she looks like now, and it kind of caught me off guard because she's like kind of foreshadowing like geek girls actually being popular. Like right now, girls, they put on a pair of glasses and they say, "Oh no, I'm geek." No, it's like you see how her Jennifer Connelly's character was well-rounded. It was she was into toys, books, games, stuff like that, and that's kind of like precursor to the rise of the geek culture.
Yes, it was, and definitely she was for her time, or the character's time. She probably would have been an outcast, which is probably why she clung to all of those things, including all the characters and such. And you can tell that really the whole story does take place in the book because she references the book so many different times. I still like the way that her imagination just kind of took off.
Yeah, it wasn't just the book though. They actually did that with a lot of stuff. They put a lot of thought into the set design on these films, on this film, because a lot of the characters that are goblins or Muppets in the fantasy world come directly out of her room. If you see the little carousel music box thing, that's the dress that she was wearing during the ball. There was the
poster.
Yeah, the poster, the stairs, the Goblin King. There was a Goblin King figurine on her dresser. So it was yeah, it was very, very clear that if you see all the surroundings, that this place comes from her imagination. Um, so it was. They never really try to get into that. Did this really happen versus, did she imagine it all? I think
no, they're very clear on that it was a dream. I think.
What makes you think that?
How would it all come out of her room? It's a little suspicious. I mean,
it's a fantasy.
The line that she used to, beat him. You have no power over me. I mean, that was a line directly out of her book that she was reading at the time.
Okay. Do you remember The Never-Ending Story?
I do.
That was him reading a book, but it was actually happening.
Yes. However, other people saw what he saw.
Well, one could argue that
when they went into the real world.
Yeah.
In that movie, they declared the defined that they were real. I mean, even when they continued on to Neverending Story 2, and they showed his dad reading it and everything, but in that series, they were very clear on that the stuff was real, and it took place in a fantasy world, but that you could bring the fantasy world to real life, and it actually did take place. In this, I thought, in my opinion, that they were very clear that this is all in her head.
I don't know, because when the movie ends, the scene that takes us out is the owl in the window flying away, and as it flies away, they recite the beginning of Dance Magic Dance. So that could be them saying, well, here's.
So you don't think that if it was real and they were really in her room, that her parents wouldn't have gone, "What the hell's going on?"
Maybe they don't see it. Maybe. There's been lots of stories where, as you grow up, you lose the ability to see these magical world type things.
Which is, again, her imagination.
Right. So
all right. What's your opinion, Time? Do you think it really happened, or do you think it was her imagination / dream?
Pretty sure it was her imagination / dream, because her parents were due back by midnight and everything happened.
That's another thing. Well, no, actually, to be fair, they left I forget what time they left exactly. I know they showed the clock, but she really only spent roughly 6 hours, I think, in the labyrinth, because David Bowie fast forwarded it.
Yeah, in that one scene, he takes the clock and turns it forward because she's doing too well.
Right, and yeah, and because she kind of said, "Oh, it's a piece of cake." But I mean, I'll give Slider that point, that the time lapse works out correctly. But I think there's too many.
It doesn't, because it's still when she's running through the range, it's like, oh no, it's already 7 o'clock, and 6 hour difference from 7, 7, and you go to 1 o'clock. The time that she spent in the labyrinth was not equal to the time in the regular world.
She spent 3 hours in the labyrinth, and then the Goblin King fast forwarded it to only have 3 hours left.
Yeah, she got home around 7 after the rainstorm.
Was it about okay?
So it's still 5 hours before midnight. That's why I think it's a dream / fantasy, because the time does not, coincide with each other. And when this time moves slower.
Well, at the same time, though, in the fantasy world, the time works differently because it's a 13-hour period on a clock. So, I mean, time might be a little different there. We don't know for certain.
So wait a second. The clock did have 13 hours in one rotation? Oh, I actually asked that question. I didn't know why he chose 13 hours. I didn't notice that. Okay, that's an interesting point. But that's easily done away with the whole, time works differently. But I don't want you to misunderstand. I'm not saying that they did or did not say whether or not it was real. I'm saying they left that open to interpretation.
Well, what's your interpretation then?
Well, my interpretation is that it could be either, that we were not told.
You don't have an opinion?
I do have an opinion, and I just expressed it.
That's not an opinion. That's
I don't think it's a binary thing. I think they left it open to your interpretation. I think it very easily could have been a real world that she, as a child, has the ability to access because she believes in it. Now, whether or not that is her imagination or a world that is realized because of her imagination, or because of the book, I don't know.
here's where let's say if you want to compare that to Neverending Story, here's where that differs though. With the Neverending Story, everything he was reading in the book, in the first movie, was not stuff out of the real world. It was all stuff that was just in the book. Everything, almost everything, even as you had said, that's in the Labyrinth world is from her room.
Well, I said much of it, not everything. Although it could be argued everything, and which again leads you to that whole "this is her imagination" thing. And like I said, I'm not trying to nail it down to one side or the other. I think it could go both ways.
What's your opinion on the way they did the songs? I mean, do you think it was too childish, or, I mean, obviously outside of the song that we just did that I like, but
yeah, I love Dance Magic Dance. I mean, that's a great song, and I think they used David Bowie well. I don't think the music was out of place at all, but I'm a little biased on that. I enjoy movies that use music to further the story, but David Bowie himself was very much a character of the 80s. I mean, that's the one element that I say that if you were to pull that element out now and put it in the present world, people would be like, what the hell is that? Just the way they dressed him, and my God, the cod piece. I mean, I was telling Tyrone, all those little the little people that were in many of the Muppet suits must have been traumatized being eye level with that thing, And last year at Dragon Con, there was a woman dressed as David Bowie's character, the Goblin King. And
last year or last month?
Last year.
Okay.
There may have been one this year. I didn't see them if they were, but
last month, I actually saw someone, two people. I'm assuming they were a couple because they were holding hands, walking around. But the guy was dressed as David Bowie, as the Goblin King, and the female was dressed as Sarah, and she had the ball gown on.
Oh, that's actually pretty cool. That's actually the picture I used for our banner on the Google Plus page. But what
I have a picture of them.
Oh, really? Is it in our? Do we have it posted?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, hopefully, if we do, Dante can find that. But what I was getting at with this costume was the cod piece on this woman's costume was so exaggerated. It's something that they would actually mock today. Although it was perfectly fine for the time that they made the film. I mean, you had the big hair guys wearing makeup, big hair bands like Poison, stuff like that. So I don't think the use of the music or even the character for the time was out of place. I just think that's the one thing that wasn't timeless. In terms of the performance, Jennifer Connelly actually, I like her. I like her in various things that she's done. And I kind of made this comment about Leon, having seen Natalie Portman evolve as an actress. I've also seen Jennifer Connelly evolve as an actress, and just seeing the vast difference in the way she delivers lines and just the way she holds herself as a actress. There was a huge difference. So she's come a long way, and I'm not saying that her performance was bad, but there's definitely a noticeable difference. Some of the things also in the film I thought were I don't want to say hokey, but like things that I'm really glad special effects have evolved the way they have. Is when she was falling from the bubble after she burst the bubble in the ballroom scene.
Yeah.
The way they basically did it was they used what was in blue screen to have the items flying up, and she was just kind of standing there doing this, which fits in with the whole fantasy thing, but doesn't hold up to today's measure. Again, at the time was absolutely fine. It was this movie was state of the art, but the art, the state of the art has evolved. So I don't think that's an unfair assessment. But overall, it's just a movie that I'm glad has remained timeless. I'm glad I can watch it now and still appreciate it. I try to introduce my nephews. I hope people introduce their children to these movies.
No, I definitely would. I mean, it'll like in terms of old classic fantasy type tales that involve Muppets and that are not too dark, it's going to be like this, Dark Crystal, and Neverending Story. Like, they were well made. They have happy endings. They are not too dark for little kids. They don't need a lot of CGI to them. They're just overall great classic films.
Yeah, and I hope that it's not a lost art. I hope it's not something that they do away with in favor of fully animated characters.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. I mean, I wish they would do something like this now for kids, so that they don't just that's shitty graphics, I'm not going to watch that.
Right. So all right. Well, I think we're pretty clear we're on this. We all enjoyed it. You and I think, are a little more passionate about it. So we're going to go ahead and let's get into picking our next movie. So we're going to get Dante to come on camera, whether he likes it or not. And we've got Dante.
I do. What do you do? There we go. I had one.
So what do we got?
I can do.
What is it?
That is either an A or an I, but
There's
23,
no
which
bingo.
the letters are really irrelevant. So
Considering it's bingo, B-I-N-G-O.
yeah,
It can't be an A.
I don't know. Could be a misprint.
Bango.
Yeah. I don't think Jose wants to give this one up, though, because was this the second time ever?
Oh wow, one of my movies, and it is X-Men.
It's Arrow.
All right, so hold on. Which X-Men? The whole
I'm sorry, the cat is having a problem with
just
this.
the first movie.
So let's get a little bit of this out of the way right now. I don't want to do the whole franchise. I don't think the whole franchise was good.
The trilogy.
Um,
Or the one movie.
I say we do the one movie. I know that's kind of against the rule that we put in place, but
because there's also the new Wolverine coming out again.
Right.
The new one, but
and that's again, we haven't seen that one though.
Yeah.
But I also don't I don't think X-Men First Class should be brought into this whole thing.
no.
And if we just talk about the three movies overall, I think the second and third movie were failures. So I don't have a lot to say about them, other than saying how much I don't like them. But I do have a lot to say just about the X-Men themselves and how glad I am that they made this into a film. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Tyrone, do you have any input on this?
Just how disappointed I was the way the story turned out.
Okay, so do you think we should do the whole trilogy, or do you think we should just do the one?
It doesn't.
I would.
Whatever you like.
I think my opinion
Okay.
is to do the one, but being perfectly fine to reference other focal points in the entirety of the story between the trilogy. Not necessarily trying to go through the entire trilogy, but if I bring up Wolverine's character, obviously we know that Wolverine tried to save Jean Grey and she died and was the Phoenix, etc., etc.
Yeah.
What was your intent when you picked the movie?
I'm sorry?
What was your intent when you picked the movie?
Well, I just picked the one movie, but we have the rule of if there's a
Or
trilogy.
then no, just do the one movie. That's your original intent.
Okay, but we do have the rule of if we have a trilogy that we discuss the whole thing. So Brandon's got a
consider it
point.
a trilogy. I consider it a franchise.
But we'll make that decision later. We don't have to hash it out on air. But so Labyrinth, great film. Looking forward to talking about X-Men next week. So you guys have any final thoughts? I'm gonna go with no. Okay.
Just follow us on Twitter and to subscribe to Facebook, thumb us, like us,
Okay.
all this fun stuff.
All right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and knock this out. That's a wrap. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Or if you want to follow along with our antics when we're not in front of the camera, you can check us out on our social media pages on Facebook, Google+, or Twitter by searching for the M Cluster. Or you can leave comments in the field below. Or you can send us an email or give us a call.
Heck, you can even write us a letter, or you could buy us dinner, or you could buy us a car. That would be awesome. Or you could send us on vacation, or get us an Emmy. Ooh, a Tony. If you could get us a Tony, that would